Welcome, Viking warriors, to Valheim. The plains is a wide open area. Upgrading your gear here is a lot simpler than other biomes. You raid the fueling villages for their dark metal, then you take their flax and barley and build yourself a large farm in the plains to get everything you need to upgrade to the new padded armor set. Our next target is Yagluth. For an early access game, he was basically treated as the final boss for quite some time. However, with the Mistlands release, he's now the second last boss you have to fight. And today, I have 7 ways to kill him. Probably the most difficult part is actually finding Yagluth's altar. I had to explore a large portion of the map before I could find him. The Vegvisirs for him can only be found next to stone structures in the plains. This might be my own experiences, but both the stone structures and the Vegvisirs are both rare and hard to find. You may get excited when you come across a large stone structure like this one, only to find nothing but rocks. For me, after fully exploring about 6 different plains biomes, I finally found one right here next to a rather small rock formation. Good luck with your search. In an interesting coincidence, on my map, Yagluth's Forsaken Altar is right next to a Mistlands biome. Lucky me. To prepare for Yagluth, you'll need a fully upgraded set of padded armor, your best food, health and stamina meads, and most importantly, Fire Resistance Barley Wine. Once again, it's always best to prep the area where you'll be fighting. You'll want to flatten the ground around the altar to make it easier to move around so you won't get caught on any hills. You can also surround the altar with walls to prevent roaming creatures from joining the fight. I did this in my previous Yagluth video I uploaded quite a while ago. Yagluth can also cause a lot of damage to the nearby pillars. If you don't want a pillar to break mid-combat, another thing you can do is replace them with some raised ground. They can also stop the meteor attacks, and they'll never break. To summon Yagluth, place 5 totems that you found in the various fueling camps on the altar. When he spawns, you have a few seconds to deal some free damage to him, so take this opportunity to get those free hits in. Yagluth has 3 main abilities. If he raises his right hand, he's going to create a nearby explosion that will burn. If he raises his left hand, several meteors are going to fall from the sky. Hide behind the pillars around the altar to avoid the falling meteors. If he takes a quick breath, he's about to shoot a flaming beam out of his mouth. You can avoid this by simply sidestepping it. The flames from the slam attack are difficult to avoid, but the damage is significantly reduced if you have fire resistance. For our first method, we're going to melee Yagluth directly. This fight will be all about finding safe opportunities to attack. You can block, dodge, and resist the fire breath and fire explosion attacks, but you do not want to get caught inside of a meteor shower. In order to get any good damage in, you'll likely have to take damage from his fire explosion slam attack. Then back off and wait for your health to regenerate before doing it again. Health regeneration meads will be important if you end up taking a lot of damage. When Yagluth performs the slam, you can block or parry the initial damage, but I recommend using a dodge roll to avoid that completely and to remain in range to start attacking. Now let's talk about the new black metal weapons. Despite all of them being made from the new tier of metals, none of them perform against Yagluth better than the Silver Sword or Frostner, weapons that you were able to make out of silver from the last biome. Not only do black metal weapons all require more stamina per attack, but Yagluth has strong resistances to piercing damage, making the new black metal 8 gear and knife not practical for this encounter. The only worthwhile black metal items you need to craft are the new shields. Since you'll be doing a lot of running to avoid the meteors, you can leave out crafting the black metal tower shield for now and just use the regular black metal shield. Now let's focus on how I finish the rest of this fight. One strategy you can also try is to stay close to Yagluth during a meteor attack. If they hit his head, the meteor gets cancelled. You can see it didn't work so well when I tried it. It's up to you if you want to try this risky maneuver. Upon defeat, Yagluth drops his trophy and some torn spirits that you can use to craft a wisp fountain that you will need in order to explore the Mistlands. Yagluth's attacks are mostly fire-based, but what if you didn't have access to any barley wine for fire resistance? While the Wet Debuff is mostly annoying, you can use it to counter the fire damage for method number 2. Before starting the battle, you need to make a spot that's deep enough to get the Wet Debuff in the water while still being able to equip your weapons. Don't make it too deep, you don't want to be swimming mid-fight. Unfortunately, this strategy may not work with every map. Yagluth's altar is pretty close to sea level for me, but for other folks, he might be high up on the hills. Like always, when the fight starts, don't forget to unload that damage where he spawns. When he uses his explosion attack, I want you to watch what happens to my debuffs. If you're inflicted with any kind of burning or fire damage, the wetness debuff will absorb it, while having its own timer drastically reduced. However, a single wet debuff isn't enough for this. We also don't want to run in and out of the water all the time. What we want to do is get him to come over to the water where the wetness debuff won't go away. It'll probably take a while, since he wants to use his fire breath, meteors, shouting, and whatnot. Now that we finally got him in a good position, we actually don't need to go anywhere. The fire explosions are completely absorbed. We can even fully block meteors with our shield equipped, since the wetness absorbs the fire damage from them. His fire breath is also pretty easy to avoid. Sometimes if it hits the water first, it goes away. The only annoying thing you'll be reminded of is that the Wet Debuff hurts your stamina regen. I guess you have to have staring contests in between attacks. There was an old strategy long ago where you could get Yagluth stuck, then shoot him with arrows safely from a distance without getting attacked. This strategy has been nerfed several times since then, but if you still want to try it, here's what you'll need to do for method number 3. First, you need to set a trap where Yagluth won't be able to move. He won't cross sharp cliffs, and you need to box him in somehow. What I'm doing here is digging a trench to create a small island to get him stuck on. I'll be using one of the pillars on the corner in order to hide from his meteors while I bait him over here. Next up, I build a bridge so that he'll cross over. This part can be a little challenging since his pathing AI requires a large area to move around. What I like to do is place my floor tiles down, then connect all the edges with stairs to make sure there's a smooth ramp for him to climb over. Next up, we need to set up a nice little outpost at an extreme distance to shoot from. What I have here is a pretty good distance away. Make sure this little outpost is high enough so you can see Yagluth from afar, and that you have both a campfire and the shelter buff for quick stamina regeneration, which you'll see later. If you want, you can technically build this after Yagluth gets stuck. He won't bother you, so you're free to build it without worry. With everything set up, let's see how we do. When Yagluth spawns, you want to guide him onto your little island. At long range, you should be able to avoid all his attacks with just sprinting. When he doesn't have line of sight, the only attacks Yagluth will use is dropping meteors at you, and maybe shouting at you from time to time. If you set everything up correctly, he'll cross your bridge and onto your little island. Once he's in a good position, you need to quickly destroy the bridge, trapping him there. He may even help you out with some meteors. If you did this part correctly, he's now stuck on the island. You should also destroy any nearby workbenches on your way out. You don't want anything nearby that will upset him. Once everything looks clear, run away from Yagluth and wait until he stops his attacks. Once he stops, get in your little house and let's start shooting. Now if you have one, you can now switch to your root armor set. If you were wearing it before, you really shouldn't have. The root set makes you weak to fire damage. But if you had the Fire Resistance buff active, then it wasn't a big deal. If your shelter and campfire are set up correctly, you should have a constant resting buff even though you're attacking Yagluth. You'll have some great stamina regeneration here. For this strategy to work, the only arrows that are viable for this are frost arrows. Yagluth has some very strong resistances to piercing, so frost arrows are the only ones that can do any decent amount of damage. Now that everything's set up, let's see how long this takes. In total, that took me 7 minutes and I shot 215 frost arrows in order to kill him. If you're trying it this way, you might want to bring at least 300 just to be safe. As a side note, it's very important to wait for Yagluth to stop his attacks before going in your hut. If you're too impatient, something like this can happen. It's time to go feral and bring out the wolves again for method number 4. Did you know that a full set of Fenrir armor has fire resistance built in? You won't need to use Fire Resistance Barley Wine if you're running around wearing that. The wolves, however, have no fire resistance. If you want to give them a little protection though, get them to go in for a swim beforehand. The wetness debuff should help out against the fire in case they get hit. When Yagluth is about to spawn, get your wolves right on top of him. With luck, he'll die in a matter of seconds. Through trial and error, this strat works as long as you have at least 15 2-star wolves. They'll likely not survive, and there's a good chance Yagluth will kill them all before dying himself. We fought Yagluth with water, but can we fight fire with fire? For method number 5, we're going to use the same technique we used on Motor. We're going to dig a hole, cover it with floors, then let the boss burn themselves with bonfires. We start off by digging a hole large enough for 4 bonfires. You'll also need a little bit more room for a workbench to fit under here. I'll explain why in a minute. For this strategy, this has to be deep enough that a lit bonfire will peek out of the top just slightly. Once everything's in place, cover the top with wooden floors and leave yourself a hole to get inside. Now there's one very important thing you need to be aware of before we summon him. There can't be anything else above ground. Wooden floors need to be the only thing Yagluth sees. If you have any workbenches up top, remove them all now. If Yagluth sees any of them, it will actually ruin this strategy. This is why you need that one workbench down below. Otherwise you won't be able to build the floor up top when you jump in. When you summon Yagluth, make sure he doesn't see you. As long as Yagluth hasn't seen you or any building pieces outside of your floor tiles, he won't use his abilities. Once he's on top, let the bonfires do their thing. Unlike Motor, Yagluth's just going to sit there the whole encounter. This will take a long time, so don't be too impatient when repairing the bonfires. After 5 minutes of burning, Yagluth is finally dead. For method number 6, we can use this pit in a slightly different way. If you noticed from last time, Yagluth's belly actually hangs down through the floors. If you're at the right height, you can actually hit him with your weapons from down here. Here's a quick guide on how to find the right height. First, place a long vertical wooden pole followed by a small one. Make sure that everything snaps. Next, place a horizontal wooden pole, then snap a wooden floor to that. This is actually too low. What you want to do next is stack 2 more wooden floors directly on top of it. I find that this height works perfectly. Now you just have to fill the bottom of your pit with floor tiles, then cover the roof again with floor tiles, and you should be good to go. Make sure all of these floor tiles have solid structures and are attached to the ground so they won't break. Like before, after spawning Yagluth, get into your hole and fill the entrance with a floor tile. Make sure that the only workbench that allows you to do that is in the hole with you. It may take some time, but Yagluth will eventually come over. Depending on your landscaping, you may need to guide him to a side where he's more willing to climb on top of the floors. Once he's in position, you can start wailing on him with your weapons. Once again, using the Silver Sword or Frostner works well here. It only takes a couple minutes to kill him this way. One last thing, I wanted to show this method using Iron Gate floors, but apparently he doesn't like those. This 7th and last method is another glitch, like how we fought Bone Mass from inside of a tree. Before you start the encounter, you need to dig under it and use the hoe's Raise Ground ability to push yourself inside of it. If your altar is close to sea level like mine, the ideal spot you want to dig is close to the middle stairs on the altar. Once you've dug underneath the altar, use the hoe's Raise Ground ability to push yourself inside of it. If you click quickly a couple times, you should be pushed into it. You might have to run and possibly jump to finish the glitch, but once you're done, you're now inside the altar. The funny thing about this glitch is that you can still interact with everything outside. I can place the idols on the altar and even summon him from here. Also, I placed a workbench on top of the altar so I could raise the ground, but like previous strategies, this needs to be dismantled so Yagluth will not use his abilities. From down here, interact with the altar to start the encounter. If you did everything correctly, he won't be using any abilities. Wait for him to slowly come crawling to you. Once he's next to or on the altar, you can start attacking. If he's positioned too high to attack, Frostner's secondary ability swings higher. But you can also modify the terrain below the altar if you need a better spot. Just keep in mind that your crosshair needs to be on the ground if you want to use the hoe in any way. While attacking him, make sure you don't accidentally leave the altar. It's really easy to exit it and become vulnerable, so keep checking your position just to be safe. Once he's dead, simply move forward and leave the glitched area. And that concludes 7 different methods you can use to defeat the 5th boss in the plains, Yagluth. Defeating Yagluth and hanging his head at the sacrificial stones will grant you a special power that greatly reduces damage from fire, frost, and lightning. This can be useful if you encounter any magic creatures giving you trouble, but it's also really good against Yagluth himself. You could use it to help kill Yagluth multiple times to craft even more wisp fountains to help you with the Mistlands later. I hope you enjoyed this guide. As intimidating as Yagluth is, as long as you have Fire Resistance Barley Wine and some health potions, he's actually quite manageable. With all of that out of the way, we're finally checking out the Mistlands and seeing who the new final boss is. I'll see you next time.